Roseanne Barr has lived quite a unique life. She grew up working class, became a comedian, scored her own TV show that's undeniably a classic, even ran for president.
Of course, as is the case with everyone, she has also gone through less fun times. She faced backlash in 1990 after her national anthem performance at a Padres game. And more recently in 2018, ABC canceled her show after she tweeted a joke about senior advisor Valerie Jarrett.
Barr has a new documentary out today called Roseanne Barr is America. It's the story of her life told by the person who would know it best. Who else? Roseanne Barr. Take a look.
Would you welcome Roseanne Barr?
Because I'm a housewife. I want to be called domestic goddess.
Oh, say, can you see?
For me, comedy's always been political. So I thought, man, I can give a hell of a speech. And I thought, that's all there is to being president, really. I was one of the first victims to be taken down by cancel culture. I'm not gonna let them, to my last breath, I'm not gonna let them win.
And the
Joining us now in studio is Roseanne Barr. It is an absolute pleasure to welcome you here. Hello.
Thank you.
Welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here with you guys. I watch you all the time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We are such fans, and I definitely want to get into the cancel culture element of your life because that's what's really interesting to me. But let's start with, you have this documentary that we watched. It's great, about your life. Why are you speaking out about what you've been through now?
Well, I'm always speaking out.
Yeah.
You know, I never shut up. But this friend of mine, Mel K, she hooked me up with Joel Gilbert, who's made a number of documentaries. And, you know, they're very conservative, and they show another side of things.
Do you think liberals will like learning more about you? How is the left reacting?
I have no idea because it just came out yesterday, but I think it's going to premiere in 86 million homes and venues yesterday, today, or tomorrow. I can't remember. But, you know, I think it's funny, so I think they'll have some good laughs. And it's an explanation of how I was used by the left to try to, I mean, they had an agenda, which I didn't know when I went back to work. But now, 8 years later, I see what they did, and, you know, not just to me, but to the whole country. I had 28 million viewers, mostly in the heartland, and I feel they did it to them, too. Because it was like... The
cancellation.
Yeah, because they were so very embedded in proving that Trump voters are racist, even though I had done one Humanitas Awards and the Peabody Award for shows on race all through my career and my life, but they just heard that I like Trump, so that means I'm a racist.
Well, let's get right into that.
And they did that to all my viewers, too. And then, you know, they repeat and repeat and repeat in the news so that they think it becomes the consent of the public.
And I remember watching coverage of when you sent that tweet about Valerie Jarrett, and as a result, they canceled your show and then later brought it back without you. They stole it from you. It's your show. And I remember watching the media coverage and thinking, can everyone just stop for a minute and like think about what they're actually accusing her of? They were acting as if you had gunned down tons of people in the street. Like you were the biggest, most violent criminal who was ever... I'm like, it's a tweet. And you have some you've offered clarification about it, but even if it was as bad as they said it was, it's still just words. And they treated you like the worst person who's ever lived.
Well, they had an agenda because I captioned a meme.
Right.
And they refused to show the meme, ever. They never, ever, no news media ever showed the meme that I captioned, where it was Valerie Jarrett next to Helena Bonham Carter in makeup for this character of...
In the new Planet of the Apes movie.
Yeah, which is a movie about fascism. And so you couldn't see that, nor could you understand the context in which the tweet was sent, which was a 3-month conversation with women journalists in Iran who were, talking about the crackdown on women's rights, particularly women business owners and that kind of thing, due to the Iran deal of Valerie Jarrett and the Obama administration. I was appalled at the way women were, being gunned down sometimes because they took off the hijab. And America caused that, and the Obama administration knew that was going to happen. It happened in Egypt too. And they just it seemed to me that they brought fascism there. And I saw the beginnings of Obama militarized the police in America, and I saw the beginning of it here. So I was involved in that political discussion for years. And then when I saw the meme, I thought, oh my God, this is perfect. Muslim Brotherhood plus the movie about fascism had a baby, and it's Valerie Jarrett, right? And I still think it's the greatest caption that's ever been. But they never showed the meme. And so they thought that I said, basically, the liberals' translation of that whole context and conversation was, black people looks like monkeys. Because they are so horrendously racist. And I fought that racism in those writing rooms, in those meetings, all of my career, every single day. And then to have those people say that about me was just too much. So, and because I say they are so racist that when they hear the word ape, they think of a black person. I swear to God. And their racism and classism is so off the charts. And, I say first they silence the people that they then speak for. They're so awful, and I'm just enjoying them being exposed and taken down by common sense in this country.
So I'm going to say, from a perspective of a fan of Roseanne and then a person who was deeply offended by the tweet, but then also watched your documentary and really understood and felt like I could hear your perspective thoroughly. Coming from that perspective, you say you regret apologizing for the tweet that got your show canceled. But do you think that there was care, not just intent, there needed to be care around that topic, and it's still needed today? Like, looking back, you might not regret the apology, but do you think, knowing the history of black people in this country, why that wording getting mixed up and misinterpreted is offensive, and still think it's worth the apology?
Well, I did apologize for any hurt feelings I caused. And of course I stand on that, because even though it was misinterpreted and mischaracterized as a racist rather than a political tweet, I understand that it hurt people, and for that I apologize, even though I had no intention of that, and it was not even in my mind, because I thought Valerie Jarrett was Iranian. She was born in Shiraz, Iran, and I was, as a Jew who supports Israel because I have family living there, I may have fallen down that rabbit hole a little bit to only see the Iranian deal and those who wrote it as being anti-Semitic and anti-Israel. And so that was my perspective. And yes, I have apologized to people who feel that I said something racist, but that was never my intention, and it wasn't what I meant. And it's just sad. It's just sad.
And I want to ask really quick, Robbie. So the comedian Monique, who I really like, I know she has controversy around her, but I like her.
Well, she's great.
She said that you have supported black communities for years. And, she said there's things that people might have missed about, you talked about humanitarian awards. What do you think it is that people miss to now tie your legacy to being canceled for racism when you say you have a history of campaigning and championing people of color?
What have they missed?
Yeah, what have they not seen? What are some things that you think people go unnoticed about what you may have done in the past?
Well, when I ran for president, I ran as the representative of the Black Caucus of the Green Party, with Cynthia McKinney as my and when we approached the Green Party, this is another painting of the racism of the left. When we approached the Green Party that I was going to be the representative of the Black Caucus there, they didn't even know there was a Black Caucus of their own party. And it was like that every single day. When I had a Muslim woman as my campaign manager, and I also had a man who was from Nation of Islam, and because my campaign was always about, don't let them divide and conquer us, unite, despite your differences. If we have like 10% difference in what we think, we have 90% agreement, and let's get on that, because they're going to take all of us down. They're going to put us behind bars. They're going to increase, they're going to set America on fire. And I've known it for a long time, because it's a color revolution, Marxism 101, and I've seen it my whole life. I've seen it because my family came from it and escaped it in many cases died because of it. And I hate racism. I hate it. I believe it is the devil, and it is part of my religion to hate it and to stamp it out. And people may not know that. And in a turn of a phrase, in a country where people know about this much about Iran and their vow to destroy my people, they don't even know that that's going on, and it's just so sad, because I feel we're fighting for the soul of America. Do we believe in the God of the Bible, the God of Abraham, or are we just people who believe in the state? And I don't think Americans are people who believe in the state.
On the subject of anti-Semitism, your Jewish roots are a big part of the documentary, your life. And I've seen you speak out against anti-Semitism on all sides. I think I saw you respond to a tweet from the comedian Russell Brand, who was saying something nice about the Kanye West music video that's just wildly anti-Semitic. You do see it. There's obviously left anti-Semitism.
I changed my mind on the Kanye one.
Oh, tell us.
I always watch Kanye because I know he has a fear of God in him, which I respect, I understand the desire to bring something good here to this planet, which I think all artists have. But after he got in trouble and everything, he came back and said, I'm done with anti-Semitism, and I have to admit I'm addicted to dental drugs, whatever they're called. Kind of the same thing Michael Jackson died from, that drug. And it's good. I want to get all my teeth pulled. It's so good. But I mean, he said, I was this, and I'm not allowed to see my children, and I was just in a horrible place that made me do that. And I thought, well, that is the best explanation for anti-Semitism I've ever heard in my life. When you're down and you're out and you're full of hate and misery, why not? Of course you're going to blame the Jews. Look, and they're this hot. Of course.
Well, he's going through. I agree with he's going through something.
I thought Kanye is a performance artist as well as a great poet and musician, but he always does something outlandish and then he explains it later. Because like me, as somebody who's I like to push, and a lot of comics do. Well, you say the outlandish thing, like to hit people in the head, to crack open some kind of place where light could come in, and then you reel it back in and explain it. And sometimes in America, that's the only way to get through. And that's why I sent my tweet also, because I knew the night before I sent it that they had stolen my show.
Yeah.
And I knew I was never going to go back to be an actress for a bunch of white middle-aged men who don't even know what a woman is, and
don't know what a lower class person is. They don't know how to.
They don't know what class is. They all came from Harvard, and I remember one writer from Harvard says, and they hired him for my show. This is before I could hire writers, and he actually says to us, "What's lunch meat?" I love that. And then when I wanted to have a black granddaughter and have my son marry a black woman in the Army, and they had this kid, and I wanted them to live in the family. I really always wanted to talk about race, and they never, ever would let me do it, but I sneak it in. And so the network told me, no, I think people are more, here's one of the ways they do it. Here, people are more interested in gender fluidity at this point, and we want Darlene to move back in with her gender fluid son who wears dresses. And I was like, Christ. But anyway, the reason I wanted to say this that people don't know, I have black people in my family, and I wanted to bring to television the notion of loving love, how love transcends every boundary, every distinction, every political thing. And I wanted to show how it has enriched my life by knowing these beautiful people. I can't even tell you how amazing they are. And I have one as a son, as a godson that, I co-raised with his lovely parents since he was 3, along with my son. They're the same age. And how much that has brought to my life, enriched it, opened me up in so many ways. And I wanted that on television. I wanted that. And they just hated that. They want to divide us. They want to divide on every level. And, I just pray every day that it doesn't work, that people wake up and realize, well, we all look up to the same sky, and we have to get over this stuff and the hate we feel for each other. I always say in my act, this hate we have for each other, we need to unite in hate, because it is the most powerful thing. If we unite in our hatred of each other, and just for a little while, we point the finger of blame upward to the people who caused all this crap, instead of sniping at each other, we're going to have a beautiful world. And that's why I came back to TV, was to say that. And, I was shocked and horrified that they would have taken it to that place and keep repeating Roseanne and her racist tweet. And they said it everywhere 1,000 times, and it broke my heart. And I prayed about it, and, I always talk to God. He never does what I tell him to do, but I still talk to him. And, sometimes he does. I always find out he's right. But he knitted me back together, as he's done 100,000 times. And he said, well, you just need to fight harder, be louder, do more. They can't stop you from getting better. That's the one power you have, as my dad says, and I say that in the movie. The one power you have that they cannot destroy is you have the power to improve and to get better and to no longer make the same mistakes that made you miserable. And, period. I really appreciate you letting me talk about this on the show, because for 8 years I have been censored from every media to explain what my tweet meant and what was behind it and how I am not what they painted me to be. And I was shocked that anybody thought I was. Well, and after a body of work of 30 years.
The way this works, and I have, interviewed in my own writing and thinking about cancel culture, I've talked to people from the lowest, from some obscure 14-year-old who tweeted something they regret, and then 10 years later is going to get a job, and they dig up the tweet and they don't get the job, or they don't get into college. Yeah. From that person up to the most famous, wealthy, successful people like yourself. And everyone ends up, when they get that mob piling on them on social media, it doesn't matter how powerful and successful you are or how obscure, you feel the same way when you have thousands and thousands and thousands of people screaming at you on social media. You feel awful. You feel broken.
Media matters, and it is, it is an agenda to silence any dissent, to silence any truth, because they're spoon-feeding us BS. And it's pile on, and they've got them, the bots, and they are paid, let's be real. And it's like when somebody is targeted, a targeted individual, you'll get 10,000 of them at your house. And if you don't shut up and go away, then, you'll get swatted. And, they have all the means and all the power of the state at their demand, and they use it, and they've used it very well. And, but like I say, they can't shut me up because God doesn't want me to shut up, so they can go F themselves.
You've called cancel culture a political weapon, and I agree that a lot of us think that the pendulum swung too far, but the origin of cancel culture was to protect and uplift marginalized voices. So can both of those things be true? I mean, that it came about around the Me Too movement for women that largely didn't speak up, and then people said, let's cancel these people, and then it just went too far. And unfortunately, you were the brunt of the 2018 completely not giving you a chance to speak for yourself, which I disagree with. I think you should have been on all the talk shows explaining yourself. Yeah. But do you understand that it came about as a protection for marginalized
Well, I was there. I was a full leftist and in a woman's, whatever it was called, commune or whatever, bunch of commies. But we were commies. But this was in the 60s and 70s when we were the ones that said, we don't appreciate your using these words when you're speaking about women or black women. We were a multicultural group, and I was the one out there petitioning, but that was different. I think we were right to do it. I mean, freedom of speech is your right to say whatever you want, but then it's other people's right to come back at you.
Yeah.
But they should be doing it lawfully, not coming to your house and all that stuff. But there was a point where the language of exclusion needed to go, the class structure of exclusion. When you're speaking to a country, you can't sneer down at them like that. And I always wanted to chop that down. And I thought that was a good thing we did. However, then it became self-appointed censors. And it wasn't, the censoring they did was the censoring of the truth. And so that was a big old flip. And I saw it happening because I was up there with all of them. And that's why I dropped out and went away, because I saw the censorship of the truth began with Israel. Mm. And then they were creating a false narrative. And then they went ahead and created a false narrative in science at the very same time on university campuses. Fake science and fake history. So that is an invasion of America, an ideological invasion, with the ultimate goal being no freedom for anyone who doesn't speak for the state. And that is not what we want here again. And I realized it. I want no part of this. I'm a comic, for God's sake.
Yeah, I always think we would maybe just get along better. We'd have less animosity in our society if we could make our government be less involved in our lives and leave people alone more. I might not approve of how you run your life, but that's your business. I know you and I were joking about, to a degree, about smoking before we started recording. Right, I'm for I'm for drug legalization. I'm for you.
Yeah, me too.
Do it your way, and if I don't approve of it, who cares? I think we'd be better off governed that way. Well,
I like that there's limits on it, such as that children can't get it.
Well, children, yeah, but adults.
But it's always about the kids.
Yeah.
So we seem to have forgotten that in this country. Mm. And that's another flip that you'll need me to come back and speak about for 3.5 hours, because I've been a children's rights activist for a long time too, and seen that. So it's like about women's rights at its base. It is the destruction of women's rights and even the erasure of women as human beings, as a protected class worldwide. And so we could say all these things and talk all these subjects that the media wants us to talk, but underneath it is something else, something very dark and terrible. And I don't want to see that happen here in America. And as long as I'm alive, It won't happen.
Quickly, I just want to ask you one more thing. If you were, because I know that the race allegations really bothered you, and I know your history now.
They
killed
me. They didn't just bother me.
I know it completely rocked your world.
I wept for days.
So that's why I want to know if you sat down, no cameras, woman to woman with Valerie Jarrett. What would you
I
say?
asked the woman. I asked her. I said, "You talk about." I tweeted her too. You're talking about a teachable moment. Then come on my show. And let's talk it out. I can write that stuff for 30 days. I can write 400 pages about I didn't understand your race. How am I to, and then get into my concept, which is race itself is racism. I think all the good people of every group needs to get together against the bad people of every group. Race is something slave owners made up. It's good against bad. And I understand that we're all trying to protect ourselves in a predatory government in which we all live, but the only way for us to save all of us is to get together and stop listening to the crap they're spoon feeding us about it. It has nothing. It's like you treat your neighbor like you want to be treated yourself, period. And then you don't send certain people to live in certain areas because the Democrat Party, they are so evil. And I just want people to know they are the cause of all the racial division in America, period. And it is up to Republicans and other decent people, including decent Democrats.
There are some of them, right?
Yes, absolutely. They're in my family. I got nothing but libtards in my family, and I still love them. And I know they're good. It's just that their ideas for solving the problem are not sound. I just want the problem fixed, and it needs to be direct and not wasting a whole ton of money on middle-class women that went to college and need a job. Every homeless person creates 10 jobs for college graduates to study where they go to the bathroom and this and that. Just get that person into a home and get somebody to help them. You don't need this huge substructure of college graduates that can't even get, probably, if they wasn't watching over the homeless and the disadvantaged, which they created, they couldn't even get a job as a damn barista. They watched these kids being tortured in homes and leave them there to die. We all know it. It's all BS from top to bottom, and this is the deal. All every color grandmothers, we need to crack down on these kids and get together, because we're the ones that actually run things. That's where everything good in this country came from. And a lot from black grandmothers in the South who had to create a whole culture to survive. Yeah. And poor grandmothers all over the place. We know how to stretch that dollar. We know how to solve that problem. We know how to get along with our neighbors. And I think that's what God's bringing here. And some of us are getting connected and going, hey, I'm looking beyond the TV I could help over there. It's a spiritual awakening, and it has no skin tone. It has no language. It has nothing but the heart. And if you got a soul and a heart, that's all you really need. And love in it. You gotta have love.
Roseanne Barr.
And you need a lot of alcohol.
I hear you on that. It has been a pleasure. Thank you for giving us so much.
I didn't even get
time.
to tell you about when I went off on that guy yesterday, but I'll come back and tell you.
All right, we're going to have to save that for next time, I think.
For next time.
I have it. Here's a copy of the documentary. Roseanne Barr is America is out now. You can stream it on demand, Amazon Prime, YouTube Movies, and more. You can also buy the DVD on the film's website, roseanneIsamerica.com. Thank you so much.
Hey,
we
y'all
appreciate
are
it.
dolls. Thanks.
Thank you.
Help me out of this.